Welcome back to another episode of the Fairlady's Revenge. In today's episode, we're tackling the biggest issue of old cars, dealing with rust. In the last episode, we put the car on a homemade rotisserie to have easy access to replace all the rusted body parts. However, before we actually get to the parts, I removed everything that you're seeing and more. All brake lines, including the e-brake, the fuel lines, the gas tank, the fuel pump, and both the front and rear suspension were removed. Pretty much anything that wasn't metal was removed from the car. I'll be redoing all new brake lines, so I'm not worried about keeping the old rusty ones. Also, it's probably not a good idea to keep the old rusty ones anyways. I also welded in a cage before flipping the car around. As there's a lot of metal to remove, I was worried the frame would start flexing and bending, so doing this hopefully keeps everything aligned. I followed a simple process for fixing the rusted out areas of the Z. The first step was to identify rusted areas. There may be some places you can't get to, but first look at the places that are obvious. This Z actually already had its floors replaced, so this car is actually on its third set of floors. They came with the car and I believe they were from Z floors. The second step is to remove, and in most cases cut, the rusted pieces of metal out. It's always good to undercut and then cut more, but it's actually even better to measure twice and cut once. The third step is to weld in new metal. I'm using a MIG welder here with, I think it was 0.03 inch wire. It's best to practice a bit before jumping onto the car to weld. The rotisserie was that practice for me. The fourth step is to grind away all the excess welds you may have. A flap disc is also an invaluable tool for your grinder. The finish created is seamless and smooth. And that's pretty much it. You just have to repeat these 4 steps for every rusted part. The roof was up next, and there was no saving it. The giant holes in the skin as well as the rusted out inner frame meant that a whole new roof was needed. So, I removed the old roof and prepared the new roof. I used these marks on the A-pillar to measure out the length to cut. I left a little extra so I can grind down and get exactly the length needed. There is an inner structure, so I notched out a bit at the ends to get access to that inner structure. Here you can see the cross-section of the A-pillar and exactly what that inner structure looks like. Were convertible Z's a thing? Maybe. But this one isn't going to be. Here you see a skilled welder, my friend Lewis, helping me weld the roof on. Weld slowly and grind quickly, and you'll have the results that you're proud of. Here I am filling in a piece of the A-pillar that I previously notched out so I can get access to that inner structure that I mentioned. One thing I never liked about the Z is the rear quarter turn signals, or parking lights, as well as the bumper. As this isn't a restoration but more of a Restomod, I don't feel bad cutting this part up, but if you're a purist, look away. The metal in the rear quarters is extremely thin, and I should have taken a much slower time welding. The passenger rear panel actually got a bit warped with the heat, and it was something that I thankfully didn't replicate on the driver's rear quarter. There it is tacked in and ground flush. You can actually see that there's a little bit of a crease, and that's before I hit it with the flap wheel to make it absolutely smooth. Next up was cutting out the bumper indents. And here's the bumper indent cut out. There it is tacked in, and here it is ground flush. A small template tip is that if you have access to the back of the panel, you can just stick some cardboard in, run a marker around the perimeter, and cut it out. Then you have a perfect template to transfer onto metal, cut out, and then weld. Next up was the engine bay, removing the rusty wiring, holders, and filling in all the holes. My battery tray didn't give me too much trouble, but I'm probably doing a relocation, so out comes the battery tray. It's not as rusty as others that I've seen, but I'm probably going to be doing a relocation, so out it comes. Here's all the pieces I removed. I also removed a piece of the firewall as I'm not going to be running AC anytime soon. And here's the bay all welded up. Here's the bay all nicely shaved and ground down. So far, I've replaced the floors, the roof, parts of the rear quarter, and parts of the engine bay. A lot of the car isn't original anymore. What's next? Well, a little more metalwork, but also a little more fun. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll have the next episode out shortly. Take care.